At least 16 Epstein files have suddenly disappeared from the U.S. Justice Department's website. Gone, without explanation. And among the missing material, a photo file containing images of President Donald Trump. The files were part of the DOJ's newly unveiled Epstein library, released to the public on Friday. By Saturday, they were no longer there. No announcement, no clarification, no public explanation from the Justice Department. Before the rollout, the DOJ warned that if any released files contain non-public personal information or sensitive sexual content, the public should alert officials so corrections could be made. But whether that policy triggered these removals remains unclear. What is clear, powerful names were involved. Attorney Gloria Allred, appearing on CNN, revealed that people had contacted her saying their names never should have appeared in the files. Her legal team immediately reached out to the Justice Department. She says DOJ told them those names would be redacted. Shortly after, entire files vanished. According to the Associated Press, the missing material includes images of nude paintings and photographs of a desk with open drawers, photos that were publicly accessible just one day earlier. One of those desk photos contained two images featuring President Donald Trump. The first, Trump surrounded by women in bathing suits. The second, partially covered, shows Trump alongside First Lady Melania Trump, Jeffrey Epstein, and Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell, photographed in the year 2000. That image is now gone. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee wasted no time sounding the alarm. In a public post on X, they stated that File 468, the Trump-related image, had apparently been removed from the DOJ release. They directly challenged Attorney General Pam Bondi. Is this true? What else is being covered up? Where is the transparency promised to the American public? The controversy is fueling a broader backlash. Lawmakers across party lines say the Epstein release is heavily redacted, selective, and deeply incomplete. Photos that remain public show Epstein with a long list of high-profile figures: former President Bill Clinton, actors Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker, musicians Mick Jagger, Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, and legendary broadcaster Walter Cronkite. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche says more files will be released in the coming weeks, citing delays caused by the need to redact identifying information. But questions are growing louder. Why were files posted, then pulled? Who made the call to remove them? And how many more documents could quietly disappear? The Epstein files were billed as a moment of transparency. Instead, they have become a new flashpoint, raising doubts about what the government knows, what it's withholding, and who is being protected. For now, the files are missing, and so are the answers.
The U.S. Justice Department has released a fresh tranche of records linked to disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein, expanding an initial disclosure made a day earlier under a new transparency law signed by President Donald Trump. The newly published material, accessible on the Justice Department's website, which includes photographs, investigative documents, travel records, and grand jury transcripts. However, large portions of the files remain heavily redacted, limiting public insight into the full scope of the evidence gathered by federal investigators. Among the most significant disclosures are grand jury testimonies from April 2007, stemming from a federal probe in West Palm Beach, Florida. One witness, a 21-year-old woman at the time of her testimony, described how she was first introduced to Epstein as a teenager through acquaintances she met at a beach resort. According to the transcript, she was offered money in exchange for providing massages to Epstein, with explicit conditions involving nudity and sexual contact. The woman testified that she was later encouraged to recruit other girls, many of them minors, in return for cash payments. Her testimony described a system in which higher payments were linked to greater levels of sexual compliance, while those who resisted were relegated to recruiting others instead. The woman told the grand jury that Epstein's longtime associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, played a central role in facilitating the encounters. She said Maxwell arranged appointments, coordinated logistics, and at times personally escorted girls into massage rooms at Epstein's Palm Beach residence. The witness claimed she brought between 7 and 10 girls to Epstein, most of them between the ages of 16 and 18, including at least one who was 14. She also testified that Epstein rejected anyone he considered too old, reinforcing the focus on underage victims. These allegations were presented to the grand jury years before Epstein ultimately reached a controversial plea deal in 2008, allowing him to avoid federal prosecution by pleading guilty to state-level prostitution charges, according to court records. The newly released files also shed further light on the criminal case against Maxwell, who was convicted in New York in 2021 on 5 of 6 federal counts related to sex trafficking and conspiracy. Prosecutors relied heavily on testimony from multiple survivors who said Maxwell actively participated or enabled Epstein's abuse. According to FBI testimony presented to a federal grand jury in 2019, victims described Maxwell as a trusted figure who normalized the abuse, sometimes praising girls after Epstein assaulted them. One survivor recounted being flown internationally with Epstein and described incidents that continued even after she turned 18, including being pressured into role-play scenarios involving a schoolgirl outfit, an item later recovered from Epstein's New York mansion by law enforcement. Additional records released by the Justice Department include handwritten messages, call logs, and notes referencing women being available for Epstein, as well as communications about work arrangements. One undated message indicates that Donald Trump contacted Epstein at a specific time, though no context or substance of the call is provided. Other names in the messages were largely redacted. Investigators emphasized that redactions were applied to protect victims' identities and comply with laws governing grand jury secrecy and child sexual abuse material. Despite the volume of material released, victims' advocates and some lawmakers have criticized the disclosures as incomplete, arguing extensive redactions obscure accountability.
Just put out the files and stop redacting names that don't need to be redacted. It's just, who are we trying to protect? Are we protecting the survivors, or are we protecting these elite men that need to be put out there? And people need to know these are predators that are in the files. They need to be brought to justice so they can stop doing this in the long run. It's for everyone's safety at the end of the day. I haven't gone through all of it, so I don't want to speak, I don't want to say the wrong things, but I do understand that also a lot of important, people have been redacted from it. And the whole process of being transparent was to only redact the survivors and the victims' names. So here we are right where we started with the first files. These names that need to be put out there, people need to know about these people, have been redacted. So it's a little bit confusing. I feel like, again, the DOJ, the justice system, is failing us. In the beginning, they were calling us a hoax, right? They were like saying that we were a hoax. And now they're like, we believe you. We're going to release the files. But yet you still haven't released the files, and it's not even full transparent. So it's very nice to say it, but it's also nice to actually do it.